Alright, welcome back to TuakTalk. We are here, if you look at this location, this is Tribes, Jazz and Reggae Lounge here at Grand Margherita in Kuching. Thank you for the sponsorship of this place. It's
Yes.
amazing. Welcome back to TuakTalk. I mean, I don't have a regular schedule, but welcome back anyway. Somehow people are watching this, I don't know why. Keep watching, cool. Alright, today we're gonna talk about native representation in media, especially like film, short film, documentary, anything media, especially mass media. And today we have two guests, Kim, Candida. I cannot call her madam. She said to call me casual. Casual.
Yeah.
Okay. Native representation in film. I just want to get it started that we're talking about natives of Sarawak, obviously, or natives of Malaysia, obviously. Okay, that one I don't have to explain to that lah. But before we go on, you might want to know who we're talking with. Aku si pelugit, tu director Jagong, setahun Jagong. Candida, please.
Right. Thank you, Sydney, and thank you for having me, and thank you to all the crews. Good evening, good afternoon, good evening, right? Okay. As Sydney has mentioned, my name is Candida. I work as a lecturer at UNIMAS dengan fakulti Seni Gunaan dan Kreatif, in particular in program cinematography. And this year's 2024, this marked my more than 20 years already teaching film in UNIMAS. Yes.
Impressive.
Go ahead.
Kim,
Hi everyone, where should I look? Okay. But anyways, hi. Thank you, Sydney, again for having me also. And I'm Kim. I am a producer and a studio manager at Iainwitheyes Studios. Yeah. Yeah, as you can see, this poster, Kumang, which I produced and also directed. It's my first ever short film, and I can say I'm really proud of it lah. And also Trap. Yeah.
cool. Thank you for joining us today. All right, so we have a lecturer of it's always in cinematography.
Cinnamon.
Hey, get it right.
Cinematography. All right, and a producer in a local punya production house that have produced native punya content. So let's go back a little bit before we move forward with the topic. I think all of us have watched the movie Sleeping Dictionary, released in 2003 with Jessica Alba and all that kan.
Yeah.
The question wants me to have explain it, but I think we all know what that movie is. But I want to start with Kim. How do you feel about that film?
How do I feel about it? Okay. I feel, this is in my opinion, okay? It's a bit of misrepresentation of the native community, which I feel a bit off about it. Though I know it's kind of like based on true story, but there are misrepresentation of the indigenous community, especially the Iban who is in the film, and as research, it's a bit different than what history told us. It's somehow they tweaked it a bit, which I understand. It's for it's
Some
how to
creative
say?
freedom.
Yeah, it's creative freedom is very important. But I feel like when you're presenting a community, it should be as authentic as because you respect that indigenous community. And that's how I feel about it lah. Yeah.
How about you, Candida? Would you recommend your students to watch this film?
Wow, I mean, all film meant to be watched. Doesn't matter, good, bad, because everything is the beauty, is in the eyes of the beholder. So the same thing with film is very subjective. What is good for you might not be not good, but it's not there's no such thing not good lah.
Yeah, there's
you
no
know,
such thing as
because
bad
even if it
film.
is good, there are always certain element of the film that can be, you know, discussed, not necessarily bad, you know, but we can engage in the discussion about the film that we watch. Now, looking back into that Sleeping Dictionary, my God, it reminds me back. I watched that film long time ago, 2003, right? I was in the States at that time when it was released. So there's one particular statement by Jessica Alba when she speak Iban, Selamat malam Pai. You know, I'm sure if you watch the film, you come across that. But I have never watched that film again after that, you know. Even Nick gave me, okay, Sleeping Dictionary, okay. I didn't go and rewatch the
Triggered.
film. Yeah.
Yeah.
But then again, when we are looking, you know, my memory on that particular film of Jessica Alba and how the women was portrayed in the film, I think it's all based on the Western gaze, you know, Western perspective. So that brings us back to the post-colonial concept ataupun post-colonial what do you call it, theory, you know, because we are all once been colonized. So macam if you watch that film, how they look at us, the story is basically from their perspective. It's not really from the Iban perspective. So that's how I look at it. So when it is from the Western perspective, definitely there are certain things that you know, worth to be debated lah. Yeah, so
Definitely.
there's so many things that if we are to dissect the film one by one lah, actually,
It's a long story.
yeah, it's a long
Yeah.
story.
Yeah.
Check.
Yes.
Oh wow.
Oh, that was fast.
I don't mind this.
Another one. Right. Well, it's nice anyway.
Oh.
Oh, sweet.
That was Western gaze. Yeah, I definitely feel that when I was watching the film. Of course, the film is mostly in English. Even when they do speak Iban, the main character is. You remember Salamat. I remember Simut. Simut.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, but I think, but you said a film can be good or bad. That depends on who's watching it and how they see it and from which perspective are they seeing it.
Yeah.
But today, I think, if it was from the perspective of you being a native yourself, do you feel like you are being represented in that film? Is this something you are proud to show your fellow natives?
Honestly, not really. But I mean, proud as in because they shot here, I would say. It represents Sarawak. But if to reference that film, I mean, a lot of stuff that you can reference to the film, but not traditionally. Yeah, shots maybe, you know, but traditional wise, culture wise, not a lot, because as what I said, it's a misrepresentation of it lah. Yeah.
I see. Do you feel the same, Candida?
Yeah, I mean, seeing us native on the big screen or silver screen has always been good, you know. Kita happy tengok kita, you know. Oh, I can identify with that particular image that I see on the screen. But then again, as you go on and look from various perspective and scrutinizing the way she was dressed, for example, the way she carried herself and the way she try to speak Iban, and you start to, you know, questions one by one, is this exactly me? You know, and so that is when you start to query ataupun you start to questions, am I correctly represented? Yeah. So kadang-kala it's good to see us. You can see at one glance, okay, Iban on the screen. But then how accurate? But the thing is, again, when it comes to accuracy pun, it can be very subjective as well, because we all understand in entertainment we have to somehow have that element of dramatization of the culture element, because if we were to really stick to that, agree to disagree, maybe some people may not be agree with me, but then we have to understand film meant to be consumed, to be entertained, and to be enjoyed. So if we really, for that kind of fictional film, and if we are really so strictly to certain element of the budaya tu, that is where maybe some people put off, because I mean tengok documentary ke, something like that. So I think bad representation is something that we have to take seriously as well, because it may give a negative connotations to our community. Because maybe they think that, oh, Iban macam tu, and they will bring that image with them for a long time. So ini yang tak betulnya. In particular, kalau yang buat filem itu pula, okay lah, never mind lah, not to say never mind the Western, but what even worse kalau orang kita, orang Malaysia,
and believe it.
So so here is the word research, penyelidikan itu come in play lah.
I feel like film can be, like you said, it could be for entertainment, it could be to say something, it could be to inform something, or unfortunately more prevalent nowadays, simply to make money. It is also a business. So which is what category does Sleeping Dictionary falls to? That is also up to your interpretation. We can never know the intention of the filmmakers themselves. All right, that was 2003. What about now? Do you feel like the misrepresentation for some people in that movie still happens nowadays? Okay.
Well, it is improving because more local filmmakers are portraying, when they do film traditional film, they do portray it authentically and with respect. But when non-Indigenous community starts to involve, that is when everything is not in place, But some films do now, they do represent our culture by having Indigenous actors, languages, and I mean, that's a good start lah.
But I think, again, we have to redefine what we mean by representation in our context as well. Because we sometimes stuck in our own interpretations of what we meant by representations, and we often stuck in one particular element. For example, dari segi costume. If we are to stuck into that, okay, costume all the time must be Iban macam ni, orang kaya mesti like this, So that is sometimes, it's not always been like that. There are many ways for us to bring forth our culture, not necessarily through material culture that we see, okay, like baju, right? Of course, language is part of the culture. The moment we speak Iban, we know that we belong. Although that anyone can speak Iban nowadays, kan? But then again, whoever can speak Iban, usually they will identify themselves also with the custom, with the culture of that community. So if we are to look now compared to then, like that's true, Kim, there is a significant difference that it met today, because I think due to national integrations as well, and there's no boundaries in terms of searching for information. It transcends a lot of boundaries nowadays. It's just a matter of you want to go far for to look into it or not. It really depends on that particular person who come up with the story. But then if you are responsible enough, if you are writing story based on the indigenous culture, I think you should do your research. Go deep into it. But not necessarily you have to come up dengan cawat. No. There's no longer about that.
Yeah.
Okay, so if I understand correctly, representation is not a yes or no. It's a spectrum. You could represent it well enough, a little, or you could go the whole thing where you make it 100% accurate. So, like you said, we have to define the what do you mean by representation. Okay, let me define and see if you agree with that. I think any film that talks about the native community, the decision makers have to be part of that film, at least at the level of directors, writers, producers, so that they have some creative control over what the story is, what happens in the story. If we are only approached as consultants or as to check the language, that's not enough. For me, that's not enough representation.
Yeah.
What do you feel? How
I
do you feel?
agree because indigenous, us natives, indigenous filmmakers, I would say, and cultural experts need to take the lead in doing native film because you can speak Iban, but can you do the accent? It's different, you know?
Exactly.
Yeah. If you have a director who can speak in Iban, would it be easier for communication? You know, but it does not mean that you cannot do it. But as long as you represent them well, I think people would agree, and I think people would be okay. You know what, we're fine with you. You know, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, what concerns me is that we take things for granted. Like what you say, the director, the most important person is actually the script writer, the one who tells the story. It's not by overnight you can tell good story.
Yep.
Because it evolves over time. And then when you write a story, it's not just about representing your community by just material culture that I said earlier on. Pakai baju Iban, cawat, sudah cukup Iban. Atau pakai baju orang Ulu, sudah cukup orang Ulu. Because mind you, I have heard this. Oh ya, tapi dia sudah jadi orang Sarawak, dia dari Rumah Panjang, daripada Rumah Panjang dia pergi ke Semenanjung. No, pendekatan itu, pemahaman itu sangat cetek sekali. It's not like that, Culture is just not about being forcing it in front of the screen. It's internalizing it, and you don't even have to force to show it. Sorry if ini mungkin lari sedikit. It reminds me of this movie that I had just watched recently from India. I'm not too sure if anyone have watched it. Lapata Ladies. You watch it. It's also great because India, Sarawak, Malaysia, we are all post-colonial. We are colonial. Sorry.
Belum minum dulu ya.
Colonized. Sorry about that. My God.
Perlu ada lubricant.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Panas sudah.
Touch the one.
You can give it to them if you want.
Nick, please come. Help me.
Alright, sorry Tunya, but I just want to go back to the part where you mentioned about having directors be directors or scriptwriter be the person that is native. And when I say, like, usually what happens when people make native contents, they have consultants to check the script, and they only check the script for grammar. They don't check the script for storytelling.
Yep.
And there's a big difference that people don't understand. Like, okay, yeah, I can make sure the script grammarnya betul, it's the right word that you use, but I have no experience writing a story. So how would I know this would turn out good? So it's a different skill. Grammar and telling a story is completely different. So you cannot just consult us in terms of language. You have to consult us in terms of story and find Iban or native that can tell a story. And there's a lot of us actually. We have our own way to tell a story. Okay, from that, why is it then because people could say, but it's my creative freedom. I want to bend the story. I want to bend the culture. I want to use the culture as a tool, as part of the story that I'm creating. And my story is fictional, so why does it matter? Why does representation matter?
You wanna go first?
Okay. Because fiction reflects and shape culture, and it is even though I mean fiction by nature, of course, it's not real, but when you represent something, you're how to say, it reflects the value and the belief of the society that creates it. You know, so that is why it's important.
Yeah. I mean, to add into that, it's simple, like this is not nothing to do with culture pun. Like a doctor, a lawyer, if you represented them wrong on the screen, that's wrong.
Yeah.
Betul tak? The language, the term that they use have to be correct, right? Because it is the real job that exists. So you cannot get the term wrong. You cannot get dia orang punya procedural wrong. So the same thing with culture in a way.
But let's say we're talking about a police officer. So a common thing that people do in police TV shows or movies, they open the door by slamming their shoulders against it, kan? So that's actually not what they actually do. But I feel like nobody cares.
Yeah.
So if I were to translate that, we're still not representing police properly, but it seems like nobody cares. So why does it matter more if it's culture?
I guess if you are looking back into these two situations, you look at the police and you look into the army, whatsoever, actually, it really matters. Even if you wrongly represented the army or the police in that matter, especially in Malaysia, memang you akan kena roasted lah lepas tu kan. So because there are certain procedures, certain salutations that must be wrong, but of course some dramatization itu is allowed lah in a few degrees of ni kan, for the sake of entertainment part of it, for the drama of it.
Yeah.
Even as I kata, kalau lah kita nak, okay, how do we see yang you kata representation tadi tu? How are you going to represent your community dari segi ceritanya bagaimana? Even for example, you create a story in Rumah Panjang. The moment you set your story in Rumah Panjang, you are already setting your audience that this story is going to take place in Rumah Panjang. So takkanlah you masuk je Rumah Panjang, boom, bandar, all the urban thing that you see there, sedikit tak betul lah kan. So when you are in that setting, of course your audience expect to see that Rumah Panjang punya adab, Rumah Panjang punya texture that you see. Although I know that Rumah Panjang nowadays is very, very modern. Kan, but still itu dari segi visualnya, tetapi dari adabnya, budaya yang kita, daily things that we do.
Yeah,
Okay.
because you see, like, sorry, I have to add on.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
media is a cultural touchstone. So what people see in stories influence what they think of what the world should be, you know. And when this representation is inaccurate, people would think, oh, is this like the Iban culture?
Yeah.
You know, and it gives a narrow worldview lah. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that is what we call certain, okay, this go back into like macam apa movie tu tadi?
Sleeping Dictionary.
Sleeping Dictionary, there is the word like you are romanticized, overly romanticize the indigenous people, or even you overly trying to protect, but in a very wrong way. Okay. So you romanticize it, you portray them as virgin, as like like the story, like the Long House, ataupun apa nama cerita tu, I think Nick has it in that, the Long House and the Virgin of Borneo. Yeah. You see? So overly romanticize us, the indigenous people, for certain kehendak ataupun you want to market it, so you do it that way. So I
Okay.
think,
I see.
yeah.
Yeah, I noticed that myself. Keting. Masih mau bercakap.
Did I go overboard? Okay ka?
No, it's fine. Okay. So I do admit it myself. I am a victim of like misrepresentation in terms of like I'm as a viewer. So my favorite movie ever is Apocalypto 2006. Here's the thing. For the first 10 years that I've watched the movie and love it, I didn't know that the natives represented in that movie are actually two different civilizations that are 400 years apart, but they're mashed together into one. So it's completely misrepresentation, and the natives over there were actually kind of pissed off about that. Even though that movie, it's good, but that's the thing. Like I didn't know, so I always believed for 10 years that it's like that. But here's the thing also, not everybody like me would actually try to Google that.
Yeah.
Because I was so in love with the movie, I Googled and tried to find out everything I can about the movie, and I found that, which was kind of heartbreaking. But I still love it. Okay, now, like you mentioned today, creative freedom. I just want to go very quickly. I'm going to mention a few things, the limits of creative freedom, whether you agree or not. So just answer yes or no or maybe. So I'm going to mention how far I'm pushing the story right now, the creative freedom that I have. You agree or not? Okay, first, mixing different dialects in where the characters are in the same family. Yes or no?
Yes or no for
Do you agree with me
Mixing-
pushing that, allowing that to happen in the film?
yes.
Okay.
Yes, now.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, and yes now in this current context.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. They grew up in the same household. Different dialects. Say one sister is speaking in Serato accent, the other sister is speaking in Cebu accent.
No.
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 Oh, yeah. Still okay?
But-
Acceptable?
For me, yeah. I mean, they are still speaking. I mean, in the sense that Iban kan.
Okay, Iban.
Cuma dia punya apa nama ni? Dia punya
Mm-mm.
slang is slightly. Was it slang we call it? Because from one is from Cebu, one is from apa tadi?
But they are the
Serato.
same
Serato.
siblings.
They're siblings.
No.
They grew up together.
No.
But when they grew up together, then why they speak?
That's the thing. Because let's say I couldn't find two actresses that are of, yeah, kan?
Okay, you're talking about
Yes.
the actors.
So,
okay.
how
now
far
I
am I
get it.
pushing it?
Right.
Okay, that's one. Now next, it's an Iban film. Setting is in Rumah Panjang, and then I use the background music lagu Sape.
No.
No, you?
No.
No,
Sape
completely
is-
different.
Yeah, Sape is not Iban.
Although sape is now kind of like used by many
Yeah.
Okay.
tribes, but sape is overtly used. You know, is there any other way?
That's the thing. I'm
Yeah.
testing your limit to creative freedom right now. Okay, small boy, let's say 12 year old, ada pungatrong.
No.
12-year-old boy. I thought bunga terong is supposed to.
There you go.
No.
Okay, actor,
Okay.
non-Iban,
Mm-hmm.
looks Iban enough, can speak the language well, accent betul, as main character.
I have to scrutinize more on that.
Okay.
How well he knows about the culture.
If you don't know that he's non-Iban, if you hear him speak Iban, sounds like an actual Iban.
Actually, I do have problem because
Okay.
sorry.
Okay.
I add into this because I'm not gonna reveal more, but I have heard a proposal to produce a film, right, based on native. I'm not gonna mention specifically what tribe.
Spicy.
Okay,
when
specifically.
this one off record. No.
Right, but they proposed to have the main actor from Semenanjung. I was like, why?
Oh, no.
For me, this is a no thing. You are given a chance to put forth your culture and to bring forward the native, the local talent. Why you have to go far?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You have to have it here.
Okay.
My answer is maybe.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Okay.
It depends on the situation. Because a lot of our actors, if they go abroad, if they go like out from Sarawak, we have no choice, you know. So I say maybe.
Okay.
Yeah.
Last one. Iban movie about traditional Iban back in the 1800s, but the title non-Iban, not in Iban language.
Like Sleeping Dictionary.
Like Sleeping Dictionary, like Edge of the World. Is that like should it have an Iban title or not?
I think
Yes, it should.
it depends juga. You may have to, but then if you were to, yeah, you can stick to the Iban, because if you have film in Spanish, you can stick to Spanish. It's still travel,
Yep.
right? So, yeah.
Let's say that movie, sambung ah. Let's say that movie is about Iban community, but the thing is, the language used is not Iban. 90% of it is not Iban. Is that something that you would, if you are part of that team to produce that movie, are you accepting that? What's your limit on how it can be done?
It depends on when is the film, like, is it in the 1980s? If it's new era, maybe it's okay. Maybe. Because now we, even at our household, we mix language, you know, maybe can. It depends on the era,
Okay.
honestly.
If you are in the longhouse, traditional longhouse, maybe it may not so masuk akal lah.
Yeah.
If you have to speak 90% of different language than the Iban itself. But if you are to depict the modern Iban family live in the urban area, maybe yes, why not? Because it's like what Kim said, today context is very different already.
Yep.
The context of the film matters a lot. Like for mine, I did get some flack for Aram Kaban. This telemovie, it is, I wouldn't really say it's an Iban telemovie. It does use a lot of bahasa Iban, but the characters are actually satu Malaysia. Zaman dulu #Malaysia Madani right now. Okay, so ada Melayu, ada yang orang Ulu, ada yang Cina, ada yang Indo characters. But some of the Melayu character and the Cina character can speak Iban. So they actually speak Iban because that's a real thing that I saw in Serato. For me, I want it to be realistic. Meaning these kids that are now, zaman now, they grew up learning bahasa Melayu, they grew up learning bahasa English. So if people say, kena yang sip cakap bahasa Iban yang penuh, it doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
Can you find one kid for me, 5-year-old, can speak perfect Iban?
Yep.
It's really difficult, especially if they go to schools and all that. That's not easy to find. So that was the limit for me. Of course, like you said, different people have different experience. So I want to ask, like, directly, right now, how would you summarize your limit, your border between cultural misrepresentation and creative freedom?
Again, it really go back to how you understand your kind of representations. Are you representing the entire Iban community in that sense, or are you just merely depicting the Iban family, but with the modern twist of story? You know, even because culture is not something that live in vacuum. It is flexible indeed. You know, it change over time, depends on the element that come into that community. You cannot say that culture is not installed in a stone. Tak boleh.
I see.
You like it or not, we all change.
Yep.
For me, it lies in intention and impact, because creative freedom allows interpretation, but when portraying a specific culture, it requires a lot of how do I say responsibility to ensure authenticness and respect to the culture. I mean, it is important. Creative freedom is important, but it shouldn't come from the expense of a culture's integrity. Because if it intend to explore the culture, it is crucial to do so with research and sensitivity lah. And that is what a lot of people are lacking, I feel. Yeah.
I think also, sorry to add in also, I think again when I say we may have to relook and all, I don't know if there's such a word that is in this context correctly used and redefine that representations that we meant, because I think even if we are to create a story, tell a story about women in the longhouse, all right, whereby their voices were not heard, and if you are creating a story telling centered on women, on how now they are being empowered compared to back then, you know, when you portrayed women as hanyalah suri rumah tangga kan, you know, but then if you were putting them, you know, voices of these women you put forth, and I think it's not just about the culture, but you are going to bring forth that culture yang orang tak nampak before, because you put them behind you before. You tak menunjukkan mereka before. So right now, if let's say you are creating a story about these women, want to go far to being a pilot, for example, tapi mungkin orang tua dia kata, no, you tak boleh jadi pilot, you should be a teacher. That itself, actually, you are representing the voices that you tak dengar before, yang you tak bawa ke depan before. So for me, that is also a kind of representation which, you know, we all should look at. But then again, our nilai, our again. Our oh my God, that's so internalization.
Yep.
Yes.
Of that culture. My God, sorry, so much of.
Speaking of the underrepresented in films, what kind of film? Okay, let's go back through history. We have Sleeping Dictionary, we have Edge of the World, we have Kumar Analoga 17, we have Laban Hidup, we have Headhunter. A lot of movies depicting Iban community. They all have a certain type. There are a certain type of genre of film. What do you think? What do you wish? An Iban film. What kind of genre do you wish to see more of? Like for me, I wish there is more biopic about Iban people. I love biopics. Vice, it's perfect. Even though it's about a very terrible person, but I still like the concept of a biopic. I feel like I don't think there's any biopic about an Iban person.
No.
If I were to do, I would definitely do it about Benedict Sandin, the first curator museum kan, the first native punya. So, what kind of films do you wish to see in the future? Wow.
What?
Oh my.
Ni dia kasih mabuk ni.
Movie pasal mabok. Okay. The Hangover versi Iban. Okay.
I think I would agree with you. I would love to see more biopic for, you know, Iban leaders, because
Wait, I just remember there is a biopic Kanang. Yeah, there
okay,
there
only
have been.
Kanang lah.
Okay,
But yeah, you know,
okay.
but it's always war traditional film, you know. There's none like, how about people like let's
First
say
woman politician, first
Yeah,
Iban politician.
exactly.
Tun juga.
Yeah.
Really, very famous person, but still not a single movie about him.
Yeah.
Yeah, I am more into, it doesn't matter what genre it is, but most important is the kind of story also. Doesn't matter if it is comedic, even if it is biopic.
Fantasy, we have a lot of
Fantasy.
Oh, I would also love folklores, you know.
Yeah.
We have so much. A lot of people always ask, why don't you do this? Like, bujang senang. I mean, yeah, but that's all you guys know. But there are so many folklores that we have.
Yes. So orang lihat Sarawak, when people look into Sarawak, everything, maybe most of people immediately jump into mystical world, jump into folklore, jump into all those cultural thing, but actually beyond that we do also have, I don't know what, but again, if we are to look and to talk to our elders, tentang perjuangan the field force police yang melawan komunis. Yes, we know about Kanang, but it's not just about Kanang. There are also people yang berserta, yang bersama, yang tidak di highlight. Or what about the family of those who who fight in the front line?
Something interesting that I would also like to see in the future is, the future. Depictions of a utopia or dystopia like 200 years and still ada Iban kan? How would Iban in the 200 years later would look like? That is interesting. And how much of Iban do you put 200 years in the future? So how would you know the character is Iban 200 years in the future? How would you represent, like cyberpunk kind of Iban kan? That would be interesting. Which leads me to the next question. Like you said today, culture is dynamic. It changes over time, and we collect history, we collect culture over time, and it adds up after that. But there's also that also causes some gaps between generations. Like for the elder generations, they're like, oh, the Ibans nowadays, the kids nowadays, they don't even speak Iban properly. But for the kids nowadays, like, I didn't grow up only speaking Iban. You did. I grew up learning English, learning Malay. So of course I do code switching language, because it depends on what topic I talk about. It's a whole phenomenon thing. It's completely normal. So the younger generations punya perspective on culture is completely different from the elder generation punya perspective. So if I were to make a movie for all Ibans of all different generations, how do I bridge this gap between generations?
It's how you balance continuity and change lah. Reflecting culture as a dynamic and evolving process, because it is I mean, as a filmmaker, I do acknowledge that culture do evolve, and that's something we cannot, as much as we want to keep it authentic, we can't, we how to say, we are evolving, so it's how you respect also both traditional views and modern adaptation, recognizing that both are valid, and making sure that, it's quite tough, but that's what I have.
Yeah, I mean, it's not easy. No need to go far. You look at those guys in front of us here, the Gen Z, the Gen whatever. What Gen are you? Alpha? Gen Z. You see, there's the gap, and I'm not talking about just Iban, I'm raising a son who doesn't know my language as well. So I think most of the modern parents nowadays also having difficulty to instill their values. I don't know for what reason. I mean, only the parents knows lah. And there's so many influences, factors out there too, through media, TV, YouTube, or whatsoever, you name it. So to create a universal story that can be accepted by across generations, I think it's a big task by the filmmaker. I mean, especially the scriptwriter, the storyteller, maybe to find a story that I don't know. It's hard to say.
I think that goes back to this marketing punya line that I was here. Like, if you're marketing to everyone, you're marketing to no one. Of course, different perspective from different generation and different people. And Iban is also not a monolith. At the end of the day, it's still a business.
Yeah,
that's one thing
you like it or not.
It's still a business.
You need to have
profit
that.
over authenticity.
Okay. Boy.
Wow. Okay.
Speaking of responsible storytellers, last part. Kim, can you give an example, real life example, hopefully, digging, an example of an irresponsible storyteller about natives, yeah. What have you heard? Thinking of how
Please
to censor
censor
it.
muka saya ya. No, blur my face.
Okay, for me,
Lepas dulu.
just going back to me today, irresponsible storytellers, not necessarily the script writer. For me, it's about casting also. So
Yep.
casting a non-Iban to play a main character that is Iban, clearly Iban, have to speak perfect Iban and all that. Usually when we comment about that, usually the filmmakers' response will be like, "Aye, we did the casting call, ba? Nobody Iban came forward." For me, that's like, you have to understand that we are still a baby. We still need some spoon feeding to find the gem, to find the right actors to be part of that film. You cannot just simply buat casting call, okay dah, harap ada orang datang lah, because we're not as developed as it is on the other side, that we have people waiting around tunggu casting call, just going to that and trying to apply for everything. So if you really do want Iban represented in films or short films, you really have to dig deep and find those people, meet those people. Even if they don't want to come, talk to them, find them. There's some talent, and that's how I found those kids. They didn't come forward and, cikgu, who come out? No, I actually went to the school. I did an activity. I found them. I found some gems. Okay, this one I can use. This one can. That has to be done. It has to be spoon fed because we're still a baby.
Yeah.
It has to be spoon fed. That's for me lah. So,
Yeah.
but yes.
It's true. I
Yeah.
think is we are undercovered.
Yeah.
Miss opportunity, yes.
Yeah. We tidak di-explore lagi.
Yep.
It's still there, hidden somewhere.
Yeah.
Somebody
Yeah.
has to go and dig it out. And you, Sydney, you need to go.
I go lah. Okay. That's fun.
Yeah.
Kim, let's get back to your gossip now. Sorry.
Oh.
Irresponsible storyteller.
I bukan I don't the one that pains me the most is when you said it's an Iban film. But whatever baju that you represent, it's just wrong, and it's irresponsible, you know, because okay, it's baju Iban, but the way you put the belt or the way you put it is just here and there. That is just not Iban. That is for me not Iban. You wanna make it fictional, but don't use Iban. Maybe inspired by Iban community, you know. That's for me. It's irresponsible. I know.
Oh yeah, they put the bell. Okay.
No, but
Baru
okay.
connected Bluetooth.
Yeah.
But they did
Wi-Fi.
answer that. They say, "Oh, but it's my creative freedom." What do you say to that?
Well, don't call it an Iban film lah. You know? That's my answer to it.
Yeah, I mean, you don't misuse the creative freedom though. The creative freedom means that you have this certain degree of freedom whereby you are free to write your story. But when come to certain fact, you have to follow. But then again, when come to apa tadi?
King.
Oh my. You see?
Here you go.
Oh my God. See? Sudah terlebih ni. Well,
Do not take that first Iban film punya title lightly. That's
Yeah.
why even I am Iban. I mean half Iban lah. And Iban still do not call my own movie an Iban telemovie. I
Yeah.
still call it's just a telemovie in Malaysia. I don't dare to, because I understand it's not to be taken lightly, claiming that it's an Iban film. As of now, do you feel like the system as it is now, from the audience to the filmmakers to the enforcers to the government and all that, is a good system to have better representation of native in film? The way it is now.
I may not be able to know exactly what happened in the industry because I'm not in the industry like people like him and you. Maybe you know better in that sense. But from my observation, right, from the external fundings like FINAS and I think our local government, state government also, I think they're quite supportive already with, we have the TVS, we have also funding from a few agencies that can help the filmmakers to kickstart even with the project and anything relevant or related to a film production. So yeah, I can see a healthy system now. Cuma, I think, the education. To close the gap and to bring forward together a better healthy industry, I think it's not just about the filmmaker, but it should be together. Even the people, the public who watch our film, even if you make film but there's no audiences, we we are still lacking. We still need audience because you like it or not, we make film for people to watch, right? So the orang kita di sini lah. Okay, people need to support arts, not only film but arts in general.
It's a very complicated thing, I would say, because sometimes some investors or funders, they sometimes don't believe if this can go further. For us, of course, we are very proud of our community. We are very proud that because there are so many endings in Malaysia here. But then can we show ourselves to the world? Would the world accept us? And that is something that is very complicated lah. Most of people don't really believe in that. How far can it take us? And that's something that they a bit yes or no to say yes to investing. Yeah, that is the only setback lah. I would say the restriction is still there, although they are trying their best to support us in so many ways.
Itulah tadi, is go back to awareness also lah. They go back to the trust into the arts. If we have skeptical people around us, film will not bring you anywhere. But when film was selling, they will say different thing.
Yeah, and then they said, "Oh, we should make more films like this."
Yeah.
I think education is definitely something that is really, really needed, especially education to the public. Authority have already doing much. Even just look at the posters here. TVS, FINAS, TVS. The one I'm not sure. How is it? Self-funded?
Yes.
Self-funded. So all 4 out of 5 is already from the authority to help to make sure it grows. And talking about education, it leads to something that I feel is still lacking, specifically in indigenous film. Critic. But you need education first to educate the public why is a critic important in arts. It's a check and balance. Yeah. But the moment we start critic in indigenous film or even I did critic of music video a few years back, people already, hey, who are you to talk about this? Who are you to wait, at least they do something, what did you do? So we are so against criticism to the point that we are still supporting it for the sake of supporting it. Yeah. You can support something by criticizing it. Yeah. Because if you don't talk about it, that is even worse, I think. You criticize it so that the filmmaker or whoever else yang watching it can improve. Okay, I can do this instead of this. Or that was the problem with that. I feel like every creative in the world who really loves doing creative things, no one has ever been fully satisfied with their own work, right? After you watch that film, after it published, how did you feel? You feel like, hey, that shot lah.
Yeah.
I wish I can change it lah.
Yeah, we do have that. Yeah.
So that's why criticism, it helps you. Sometimes you are so in love with your creation, even though you still also some things you hate about it, but it helps criticism to help you see other perspective, and it educates the public on the history, on the background, on why it's important. So I feel for me lacking a bit further later is critics.
Yeah.
I feel like we need critics.
It's honestly something we my company practice. Boss, yeah. It's something. Okay.
Shut up. Yeah.
minum lah. Okay, so it's something that we at Iainwitheyes Studios we do practice that. So whenever after editing habis, we'll always have fresh eye to give us comments on something that we can tweak a bit, you know, something that we don't really need to do it perfect, you know, but at least give us opinion for like as a third person who sees our work. You know, that is what we practice lah, which is, it's very helpful for us. I won't say that it's 100% perfect, but at least it helps a bit, rather than, okay, my work it's perfect, it's complete, it's, you know, I think people would love it. But, you know, yeah.
Don't be too sensitive. But when I'm critiquing your film, I'm not critiquing you. I'm critiquing the story. So that sometimes people, because this happened before, when, like I said, I critique the music video kan, they take it as if aku critique the penyanyi. I'm just talking about
you're
the
not
video.
against,
Like,
you're
I'm
not against the.
Like, I'm not trying to fight you. I'm just
Yeah.
like, I'm telling you, I think from my perspective, this is how I see it. So if you want to take it, up to you. If you don't want, you want to continue how you do, it's also up to you. I cannot stop you from doing what you do.
That's true.
Yeah.
Tapi not many people like to be
Criticized.
criticized.
Alright, moving forward for the next 10 to 20 years, kan, what do you foresee would still be one of the biggest challenge in trying to advance, especially native films? Besides the funding, besides the lack of critic or personal, what else do you see as a problem?
I think still about our skeptical, still seeing film not going to bring you anywhere.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I think it's still the education, it's still the awareness about this industry itself.
Right.
Of course.
Kim, what do you see as a problem?
There's a lack of indigenous voices in how to say, part of the filmmaking. If you're talking about making a traditional film, it's native films, I would say, and this is something that a lot of people take it lightly for, because when you talk about okay, we have all the crew already, tak cukup lah, you know, everyone's opinions over there, but you don't have native people there, it doesn't help your film much, you know. That's the voices of the native people. That's the lack. I don't know. Still, it's how many films already that we have done, native films that have been done, and still there's a lot of things that are lack. And because there are no voices, indigenous people, we don't have voices, and we are somehow, they don't put us as we are not as important to be part of the production, I would say, which is something you should do, because for me especially, I am very how to say, very
Yeah,
Passionate.
and say not enough natives in positions of power to do anything about it.
Exactly. I'm very specific when it comes to making film. Not that I've made a lot, but I've been in quite a number of film that has the element of like my culture, which I help to do research for. And for me, I am very sensitive about it if my voice is not heard. And that is something is like lah. If it's only one me, it's not gonna be enough. You know?
Definitely.
Yeah. I need 10 of me maybe to help to tell these people, to help to voice it out that, okay, this is how our story is. This is how you tell it. You can tell it your own way, but listen to us, you know. That is what I feel lah.
People, natives in positions of power to make a change. We need more of us, and also not just positions of power. The public also have to say something.
Yep.
Right. So right now, for the public, besides doing like speaking up and all that, what else can the public or the authority do to support indigenous film?
I'd say ensure that they have a platform, funding, obviously, and also creative freedom creative freedom to represent their culture, voices, of course, and experience how to say accurately and respectfully lah in how they present their culture.
As an agency that to see a change in the community, of course, the funding has to be consistent. And it's not by season.
Okay.
It's not seasonal. I mean, it has to be consistent, not only in terms of monetary, but I think by the system. Maybe I'm not too sure who's going to do that, but there should be a system whereby we can build it from beginning, from the ecosystem yang kita cakap ni lah, you know, the one that can look into the acting, encourage participations, you know, by the young talented individuals, by the school kids whatsoever, you know, the theatre community in Kuching or across Sarawak, you know, because your talent may come from them. You know, if let's say kegiatan teater bergerak dengan aktif in Sarawak, I think you can find your talent from there, your actors or actresses from there. And also that's from the government, you know. Again, it's the consistency. All right, and to give more platform, like what Kim said, a festival, right? A willingness by all the people involved, the agency, the filmmakers, and whoever, to bring forth the voices of Sarawak, the voices of the indigenous filmmakers, okay, and to go and be bold out there to fight for the opportunity, even if you see the opportunity is not there for you, right? So you just need to fight, even you know, you nampak peluang itu sangat tipis, tapi kalau you tidak mencuba, you never know. So I think it's that semangat lah, I would say that.
Yeah. Speaking of funding today, not just a consistent funding, but also to really make sure the funding goes to the right people that you intended, because this really actually happened. I can say it, I don't mind, because say TVS, the funding, the pitch it is for Sarawakian, like 50% Sarawakian, that's the rule. But there have been like companies from the other side who are not Sarawakian use companies in local to pitch for it, and that's wrong. So I just hope that companies that are being used like that, like don't like don't create the opportunity for misuse of funds, funding. And I'm not blaming TVS, like I'm not blaming anyone, it's just that happened. I'm just saying that the funding has to go to the right people, has to be used properly. So when you're being audited for like where the money goes, janganlah aku perlu kah, like no. There's a good reason to do that, because you want to make sure it goes to the right people.
Be truthful about it lah, and be responsible, you know, because that's not your money.
Right. Last
Oh my.
last shot, that's what I meant. Alright. Last question. This is purely speculative, your own inference. What do you hope to see in 50 years about indigenous film? The whole system of it. What do you hope to see happen?
Wow, 50 years too far in front. I want
How about 49 years?
Kita sudah sebut tua.
Well, I hope for more opportunities for Indigenous creators. Obviously, cultural preservation, that is the most important, and diverse narrative. Yeah, diverse narratives, let's say.
I want us, the Indigenous filmmakers or Sarawakian in that matter, to be at par with anyone out there, that there's no longer about disparity between west and east, but you are there berdiri sama tinggi with people yang kita nampak yang mempelopori this filmmaking.
I hope native films from Borneo are not seen through the goggle of like, oh, it's so exotic. Oh, so I
Yeah.
have that. I'm expecting that exotic punya. No, just look at Borneo films as great films. Pretty much how they see Korean films nowadays. They don't just say like, oh, it's Korean film, so I have a specific way of looking into it. No, they're just great films, despite of the culture. Aside from the culture, aside from the language, it's just great film. That's I want it to be described a great film, not a great Iban film, the best Iban. No. It's a best film
Yeah.
out of all categories. It looking at everything together. So I hope it reaches that, and I hope I live long enough to see that. Hopefully, and even better to contribute to that.
Yeah.
No matter how small, but
Yeah.
hopefully. Yep. Habis shot lah. Okay, bye.
Saya ada satu lagi,
And
Bang.
thank you again, Buraque, Tuak, and also Tribes, Jazz and Reggae
Sama-sama.
Lounge at Grand Margherita for sponsoring this episode. Bye-bye.